As we were talking about earlier, the people leave. Every time we do a break, people take off. I don't take it personal. I thought the teaching was decent until the break. All right, guys. All right. So now we have what is called the change of mandate, how the Creator now gives humanity the mandate. You are going to be in my image, in my likeness. Now you understand what that means. Yes? Okay, so understanding that you're not just a human being walking around with no purpose. But the problem is that if we do not understand the temple, the structure, that's why the temple, the study of the temple, the services of the temple is permeating all through Scripture, through the narrative, to teach you that that's how you return to Eden. How do you walk in the presence of the Lord? We can't be in the presence of God in the state that we're in. So we're going to be transformed in the twinkling of an eye. What does that tell you? That we're going to be in the presence of the Lord, but we can't do it unless we are, in a different state. I'm not going to speculate about what that looks like. I'm not that smart. I'm not going to worry about something I can't control. What I'm going to go worry, however, is what I could do today in order for me to understand the role and the mandate that the Creator has given me to do. See, many people focus on the little things. They major on the minors. And it's creating chaos in the body of Messiah. Why? Because we come from a system of religion that really, honestly, with all due respect to any leader present, the teachings are minimal in content. Because the people are not used to it. It's like when you go to the gym for the first time. You don't start working out with 300 pounds. You think you can until and then you go in there and you say, well, let me start with 10, And then you got to do that for a while. You have to condition your body, go through the pain process and all that stuff. And then you can go up in weight slowly. If you go too fast, you're going to get injured, you're going to get hurt, right? Well, the same thing happens when you're dealing with biblical principles. That's why there's revelation and revelation and revelation as we go through. I didn't know this stuff back 10, 15 years ago. I was finding my way around as to how to present the information. Okay, so now I'm learning a little bit better as to, first, what is my job? What is my function? And that's why I try to stay away from all the controversies and some of the arguments I have an opinion on, but is it really going to help my function and my purpose? Is it going to deter from what I'm supposed to do? Is it really that important to be right? Or is it better to be a good servant? See, that's the decision that I needed to make. Do I want to just teach because I want to be right in everything and not listen to people? Or I want to listen, exchange, debate a topic if we have to. But ultimately, it's about how do we represent our Creator on the earth. Right? How many people you know that they're smart and then you hear them in person and you don't never want to hear them again? Right? I hope I never become one of those. And by the way, 8 years ago, I was on my way to becoming that. That's what turned me upside down. I was starting to believe that I was more important than the message. And it was easy for me. Let me give you a background story to that, because I was a professional ball player, in the minor leagues, and I was in the entertainment business for a little bit. So it's like, that's toxic. You see, I was searching my way. I was looking for my fame, my name to be known. See, and my life was chaos. So therefore now, when you start in the Torah, people, if you're not purged out of that mindset, then you're trying to do the same thing. You feel more important than you really are. The reason why we have any kind of name whatsoever is because we serve the King of the universe. So I'm not intimidated by any royal person or anyone with status. I respect them for what they're doing, whatever it is they do. That's their life. But I don't need to be envious of them because I'm an ambassador of the King of the universe. It's okay. I'm not worried about it. I don't need to go over there and compromise my beliefs just because I'm trying to appease one guy. I respect you, you respect me. I respect your lifestyle, you respect my lifestyle. But ultimately, at the end, we're going to know who's right. Throw your staff on the ground, I'll throw mine, see who eats what. Right? It's just, you want to question it? No problem. Throw your staff out, throw mine. Let God decide. Because if we are the servants of the Lord, He will do the battle for us. You see what I mean? But if we do not understand the temple, we're never going to get that. That's why we have to go back to Genesis to understand these patterns. When I was younger, man, I was always seeking and looking. Now it's like, I think I get it. You know, the other day I'm staying up until midnight. I'm there laying next to my wife, and we started talking. And I said, I get it, honey. I get it. I understand it now. I finally got it. She goes, what? I said, it's to make God's name great. When all is said and done, it's not about us being known. He allows us to be known in order for him to reveal himself through us. So that when they see us do something that is righteous, they'll say, oh, yeah. They serve the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Instead of saying, oh, yeah, those are the followers of that Messiah of the Jews. You know, when we do something wrong, like the kids, you know, when they do something great, the kids get all the honor. But when they do something stupid, they say, oh, yeah, that's such and such kids over there. They blame the father for what the kids do. You know why? Because the kids are the image of their parents. They're supposed to reflect their integrity, the honor, the righteousness, justice, their equity, and the faithfulness and everything like that. When the kids do not behave like their parents, imagine if you have great parents and the kid is just a cancer. You're perplexed. You're going like, where did that come from? You know, so therefore, that's why we strive to make in our kids our image. How many of you look at yourself in the mirror and you look just like your mom and dad? Isn't that scary? Oh my God, when I was 20 years old, I said, I don't want nothing to look like my dad. And like 5 years ago, I woke up, I look at myself in the mirror, oh my God, I'm my dad all over again. And that's scary. It's just like, no. You know? But I remember great things about my father. He was an honorable man. He was a good man. No one can say anything bad about the guy. Because he always showed character and integrity. And I hope that I can make his name known. If I want to make my father's name known that you don't even know, how much more my creator? I don't need to see him to know that he exists. I see you serving him, you know there's got to be a God, because we're crazy people from the dispersion serving a God we've never seen. I mean, think about how illogical that sounds. The world is trying to prove that there's no existence of a God. And here we are, plugging along, coming every Sabbath, and we just do the prayers, and we do the worship, and we raise our hands thinking, I'm hoping somebody's listening. That's a lot of faith. I have it. I'll go to the ends of the world. If given the opportunity, I'll go anywhere. Well, I don't know about Saudi Arabia, but, you know. Well, if he sends me, then I'll go. Well, my king is good. He's not going to put me in harm's way. Remember that. I can count on his character. It's one thing I know about my king. The Father sitting on the throne, he is good. He is faithful. He is just. And one of the things that drives me amazingly in love with him is that he keeps his word. Oh. When I read in the prophets when the Lord says, for I raise my hand in an oath that I will do this, man, I put it on that. I mean, I believe in his word. I'm not talking about the Bible. That goes without saying. I'm talking about the character of his oath. You know, I believe in that character of his oath. And to know that now I have a mandate that I'm not created to become a slave to the gods. Well, how come we still a slave to the gods? How come we're still serving the gods and we don't even know it? How come the Lord doesn't treat you as a slave? He treats you as a friend, as a son and daughter. But we don't study the temple, so we do not understand the access that we have to him. The temple allows you to understand the access. You see, if you disobey the covenant, then you are cut off from his presence. Covenant relationship is what allows you access. What allows me access to stand here is a covenant relationship we have. But just because I serve Messiah and I serve the God of Israel, his Father, doesn't mean that I have immediate access unless there is relationship. And I'm guaranteeing you, in this week, we're going to be together for the week. I'm sure if we focus on the things we disagree, we're going to find many. And our maturity will be when we agree on the things that we agree and still love one another, and we still equip one another even in those things that we do not agree with. That's maturity. You understand? So it's not about being right. It's about being servants. That we can still look at each other, love one another, and still equip one another when we may not agree on every point. But we can edify one another. You use a phrase here all the time, one new man. And I was sitting next to my brother, and I said, hey, have you ever considered that Latin expression of what Paul said? He says, no. And I said, well, would you mind if I share it? And I was able to exchange with him a little bit about it. It's the Greek word, a Latin word, homos novus. I'm departing from the topic to also let you know how Paul is trying to convey to the believers in Yeshua and the Roman Empire of their new status. Homos novus was the expression, it was a legal expression in Latin in the Roman Empire, because you have caste system. You have the patricians, you have the plebeians, you have the freedmen, you have the slaves. The slaves and the patricians, they have no rights. The slaves and the freedmen. The freedmen bought their freedom, but they were still subservient to their master. And the slaves, they had no hope of the world. They had no name. They had nothing. They had no identity. They had no land. They had no inheritance. They were lost with no hope in the world. They had no place in the society. They were not treated with equity. They were treated with oppression by their masters and everyone of higher rank. So Paul now is dealing with this big problem in the dispersion of all the believers in Yeshua. You have in a room on a Sabbath, you will have a patrician, you have a plebeian, and you have slaves, and you have freedmen. And the difference is that they all have to be one in Messiah. During the week, if you belong to a different caste system, you're dressed different, and they treat you differently. They will not even eat with you during the week. For a plebeian, a patrician in the Roman Empire to eat with a slave and a freedman at the same time in the table, that's table fellowship. That is implying covenant. You just didn't do that with just anybody. Now there comes a Sabbath. And Paul meets with all the believers on the Sabbath, and then you have slaves, freedmen, patricians, plebeians, slave, free, slave, slave, slave. They're all sitting at the table, and they have equality, equity within the table of the Lord. Not only, and then Paul is saying, because you are now one new man. Out of both, one new man. Homos novus. Homos novus was when a plebeian, I'm not talking about a freedman or a slave, only a plebeian, like the middle class people, or a patrician, like the elite, the 1%. You know what I mean? When they will go from one status to the next. So let's say that now you are a plebeian and you get elected to become a senator. Now you can be hanging out with the patricians, because the patricians were the only one who can be senators. Right? So there was a civil war in Rome, and the war was that we don't have a voice in the Senate. So the patrician says, okay, so you're going to select one person who's a plebeian, and then we're going to make them a senator. They can come around us. There'll be your voice to be heard amongst the senators. Now, within the Senate, there were a second-class tier type senator. You follow? But that exchange from this status to that status was called homos novus. It's a race of status. But in the Roman Empire, that was only prevalent within a certain caste. You follow? In the Torah and in the gospel, Paul is saying that to everyone who believed. You have a new name. You have an inheritance. You are now the sons and daughters of Abraham. And according to the kingdom, you are a new creature. You're a new man. It's a change of status. So when somebody treats you as a second-class citizen, you're calling God a liar, that he makes a respected person. This comes right with it. The temple will tell you, well, you can't go in the holy place, the sacred space, if you're not circumcised. It's true. Ezekiel 43 says, those who are uncircumcised in the flesh and in the heart will not be able to go into the sanctuary. That's a law for the millennial reign. How are you going to deal with that? That's up to you. But right now, that's what the Bible says. But it's easy. You want to be in the sacred space. You want to be part of the kingdom. You want to have an inheritance. You want to go to Eden. You want to go in the presence of the Lord. Not a problem. Let me see your commitment. Come into a covenant. It's simple. You want to be on this side. You want to be in the presence of the Lord. Not a problem. Be in covenant. Let me see your commitment. I mean, it's like if somebody comes to you and says, well, you know, I love you so much, and here's the ring, but I don't want to marry you. But here's the ring. Is that logical to you? I want to be engaged, but I don't want to be married to you. Honey, I love you, but I don't want to be married. But the problem is the women in the society nowadays, they give them all the benefits as if they were married. So why would they commit? And then they complain. Oh, he hurt me. I gave him everything. That's the problem. There was no commitment. Show me that you're really serious. Focus on me. And then it becomes a reciprocal relationship. We help one another, we minister to one another, we support one another, and we take care of one another. It's easy. You destroy the family structure. You never have an idea what a family is. Then you're never going to value anything. That's what's going on in America. You destroy the family structure. You divide the house. They don't value the land. Family, a house, and a piece of land. Yeah? All right. Okay, so now in chapters 5, verse 1 through 3, there's a transition. Remember, it's like a new creation motif, right? It says, this is the book of the generations of Adam. When God created man, he made him in the likeness of God. Male and female, he created them, and he blessed them and named man. And when they were created, when Adam lived 130 years, he fathered a son in his own image and likeness, his own likeness and his own image, named him Seth. So what's the difference? You know, and even in the Hebrew it tells you, in the Hebrew, see if I find this somewhere. It's not here, so I got to get it. There we go. I'll go back to that, okay? It says, in Genesis 5, 1 to 3, Seth was born according to the image of his father, Adam. The phrase used in this instance is Ketzelem, with a cough. Now, when Adam was created, he was in the Betzelem. Even in the Hebrew, there's a letter that makes a distinction between Adam and Seth creation. Yes? The image of Seth versus the image of Adam. He was in the image of God, but after he fell, then Seth was in his image. Was a body, but then could not be in the presence of God. Okay? All right. And it says, the Hebrew preposition differs from the phrase in Genesis 1:26, having the preposition ka, the kaf, instead of the bet. These two prepositions used by Selim are interchangeable. The two prepositions bet or kaf, according to, are interchanged with the noun Selim. And the other noun used in Genesis 1:26 is demut, which is the likeness. So we have to be in the likeness of. That's why Yeshua is in the similitude of Melchizedek, Hebrews chapter 7. In the likeness of. Yeshua is called the image of the invisible God in the book of Hebrews. Also in Corinthians. You know, he is called. Why is that? Because Yeshua came to restore not only Israel, like I said earlier, but also he is restoring all of humanity back to the garden. But he cannot go and get the humanity without starting with his house. Remember? A house, a family, and a piece of land. So he establishes, renews the covenant with the family. He tries to regather the family to their house. And then he brings them to the land. That's why when Messiah returns, he will gather all the exiles from the four corners of the earth. Then the temple is going to be restored. Why? Because the temple is a microcosm of Eden. And remember, the Lord rested on the seventh day, right? Rest is an idiom for ruleship, kingship, direction, and authority. The United States president, he rules from the Oval Office where? In the White House. So what is the president trying to do? He's trying to keep together the land, the family, and the house. So what's going on? And what is the media trying to do? Destroy the land, the family, and his house. We are destroying what God told us to protect. No borders. No sovereignty. American citizens don't even know what American citizens anymore. We let illegals now have the same rights as a citizen. That makes no sense. Go to another country. I travel all over the world. I can tell you I have no rights anywhere except America because I'm a U.S. citizen. Now, if you go to Saudi Arabia, they kill you if you try to preach the gospel. But they come over here, we got to just bow down to them because they're Muslims. That makes no sense. Why? Because we no longer have civics in school anymore. We no longer make the kids to do the oath of allegiance. The Muslims are not going to do that. They're not, it's easy. It's interesting that after they took away the oath of allegiance from school, that's when the Muslims were able to come in here at Groves. Because you have to swear allegiance to the Constitution of the United States. And they're not going to do that when they serve the God of the Muslims. So they have no loyalty for the land. That's why they trash everywhere they live. Why the Palestinians do the same thing too. It's not their house. It's not their land. So what are they trying to do? They're trying to take away the land, the house, and the family, destroy. The same thing. That's what the enemy's trying to do. Right? You see how simple it is when we get it? The whole patterns are repeated all over the place. So you know who's a true teacher and who is disruptive when they're trying to divide the congregation, divide the family. You know them by their fruit. Are they sowing the barley that reaps fruit? Right? And you have to wait. You have to wait for the cizaña. How do you say cizaña? Cizaña. Help me on Spanish. I forgot. Cizaña. The barley, what's it? Thank you, the wheat and the tares. You cannot cut them off until they bear fruit. You got to let them grow. When the harvest comes, you know which one is what. That means that the fruit determines the quality of who. All right, good deal. All right, so the image of God. It says, a phrase found several times in the book of Genesis. Distinguishes humankind from the animal and plant kingdoms. Elevates humankind above all terrestrial created things so as to exercise benevolent and ethical stewardship over creation. That's what we're supposed to be doing. The image of God language is found in the New Testament as part of the believer's responsibility to imitate Messiah, who is the image or the imager of God par excellence. That's why Yeshua is the image of God. Why? Because Israel was supposed to be the image of God and they fell short. Yes? All right, so now, why the command against idolatry and images? Humanity's creation in the image of God may be described in those terms as a basis for the Israelite rejection of making images of their God. Making a graven image is prohibited because humanity already is such image. Chapters 20, verse 4 of Exodus. The word is not selim. Okay, in this passage is something else. Okay, so humanity is made the store masters of creation. Think about that. You are not a slave according to the ancient world. This is revolutionary. This is different. The Lord is picking you now. He chose you with all our insecurities, with all our attitudes, with all our deficiencies, and he says, I will seal you, I will restore you, I will bless you, I will redeem you, I will save you. All I want you to do, be thankful and let everybody know how good I am. Make my name great. Right? And this is not about making America great again. This is about making the name of the Creator great again. Because, by the way, let's go to John 17 real quick. I want to show you. John 17. Is that right on that one? John 17. Yeshua spoke these words, lifted his eyes to heaven and said, Father, the hour has come, glorify your Son, that your Son may glorify you. You have given him authority over all flesh, that he should give eternal life to as many as you have given him. And this is eternal life, that they may know you, the only true God, and Yeshua, Messiah, whom you have sent. I have glorified you on the earth. I have finished the work which you have given me to do. That's temple language, by the way. And now, O Father, glorify me together with yourself, with the glory which I had with you before the world was. Verse 6 is really important. I have manifested your name to men whom you have given me out of the world. They were yours, you gave them to me, and they have kept your word. Wait a minute. I have manifested your name. I got a question for you. How many arguments do you see in the book of the Gospels, Yeshua arguing with people about the pronunciation of the name? In the Gospels, how many debates did Yeshua have with the Pharisees and Sadducees? And no, the name is pronounced this way. I mean, if anybody knew how it was pronounced, it would be him. Right? Because the angels constantly are saying, Adonai Sevaot, holy, 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 the Lord of hosts, in the heavenly realm. So if anybody would have known, Yeshua knows the name, right? But it's interesting. He says, I have manifested your name. How did he manifest? He didn't say, I pronounced the name correctly for them. He manifested his name. How? Through righteousness and justice and equity. Somebody sick, heal. Somebody hungry, feed them. A widow, take care of them. A homeless, take care of them. Strangers, make them feel welcome. You know, the outcasts, make them feel part of the... Can you imagine Messiah coming to you and you are a widow in Israel and no one pays attention to you, you're a widow and you're destitute, and then all of a sudden, my master, Yeshua, the Son of the living God says, hey, how are you? You doing okay? What is your name? Would you mind breaking bread with me? I mean, back then a widow was, for a widow you have three choices. Either you become a prostitute, you die, you become a slave. And then to have Paul going into the Roman Empire and teaching the Corinthians, don't you know that you're the temple of God? By the way, he's not talking to the individual. Go to chapters 1, verse 1 or verse 3. He's talking to the ecclesia, to everyone. We are all the temple of God here today. But individually, he's not talking to the individual. That's something we need to understand, and the Bible is always collective. Americans are individualistic in nature. We're no longer in the World War I, World War II, and Korean War. We were all one people. That divided in the Vietnam War. After that, we are individuals. And the sad thing is, those who fight for our freedoms, we turn against them. We've lost a sense of nationalism. In the Torah, you see the same thing too. You see the same thing too. So what happens is that we become individuals, and that's a problem. Because in the Bible, the sins of one can affect everyone. The honor of one can bring honor to the congregation, as well as the shame of one can shame everyone else. So the Bible is a collective unity. We are all one. So Paul is teaching the Corinthians, pagan people who are coming over to the gospel, and says, don't you know you're the temple of God? You can't be going sleeping around with prostitutes and serving all the gods and going to the Ishmael games and doing imperial worship and go having, you know, a cup of coffee with this guy over there who's your patron who has to give you a prostitute to keep you entertained. You're not supposed to be like that. You can't go around stealing from people. You're supposed to treat each other with equity. You are a temple, and the temple has to handle themselves separated in the levels of holiness. He's trying to encourage them to know who they are. They're not pagan people who are dirty no one wants. The God of Israel has accepted them because they're humans. They're humans, and the Lord wants humanity restored. But they have to have a pattern of obedience. And how do you learn it? The temple teaches you. It teaches you what? Protocol. It teaches you sacred spaces. It teaches you holy spaces. It teaches you how to come to the Lord when you bring your offerings. It teaches you how to be grateful when you have harvest. It teaches you how to be equitable with your neighbor. That's why you have different types of tithe. One of them, you bring it up, and you're supposed to read, delight yourself in the Lord and have strong drink. It says that in the Bible, to have strong drink. But you cannot do it unless you help the widows and the people in need. Give to the needy, and then whatever's left, delight yourself in the Lord. So you want to go to Israel? Follow the biblical pattern. Save money for 3 years. I guarantee you $100 a month for 3 years, you have enough to go to Israel. You pick how long. 10 days, 12 days, 15 days. Up to you. Okay? So now what we have here is humanity is made the steward masters of creation. The image and vocabulary is linked to childbearing. Humans after Adam and Eve are not direct creations of God. But Genesis 9:6 recognizes later humans as being God's image. 9:6, whoever sheds blood of a human, by a human shall the person's blood be shed, for in his own image God made humankind. So why does it go back to that in the time of Noah? Because, like I told you, it's a new creation motif, remember? God brings chaos to order. Noah dedicates the earth again by building an altar. He plants a vineyard. That means he becomes a gardener again. So now humanity is back in the image of a righteous man, Noah. Oh, Noah means rest. And rest means kingship, ruleship, authority, and ownership of the earth. Do you think all these stories are by coincidence? Right? And it goes from chaotic waters to order. From chaotic waters to let me go back here. I'll show you what I mean. I got to go back. I got to go back. I got to go back. Right here. Let's take this whole the whole principle here. It says, 6 days later, that's Matthew 17. 6 days later, isn't that creation? It says, Yeshua took with him Peter and James and his brothers John and led them up to a high mountain by themselves. Wait a minute. Moses took Nadab, Abihu, and Aaron and the 70 elders with him to the mountain. Yes? Okay. And it says, and he was transfigured before them, and his face was shone like the sun, and his clothes became dazzling white. In other words, they revealed to those disciples that this man was a prototype than Moses. Remember, this man, Yeshua, is the Son of the living God, and this man, Yeshua, is the last Adam. Not even an amen. What's wrong with you people? All right? So, by the way, Moses came down from the mountain, and his face was shiny. The people cannot withstand the shine. They have to cover it. Interesting. Israel, they were in the fallen state. So therefore now they cannot be in the presence of God. You see what I mean? So now it keeps reading. It says, suddenly there appeared to them Moses and Elijah talking to them. Well, clearly it cannot be literally Moses and Elijah, because that will be speaking to the dead. That's a no-no in the Bible. It's a vision. It represents the Torah and the prophets. People use these verses to say that Yeshua did away with the Torah and the prophets now, just because he's here. Now we don't have to do that anymore. Talk about taking it completely out of context. Now watch this. And it says, then Peter said to Yeshua, Lord, is it good for us to be here? If you wish, I will make the tree dwelling here, one for you, for Moses, and for Elijah. While he was still speaking, suddenly a bright cloud. Ooh, there's a cloud on Mount Sinai. There's a cloud on the tabernacle. You see, now there's a cloud. All the elements of creation are there. Because the mountain of the Lord is the temple, right? Isn't that what Psalms 24 says? Ezekiel 28 talks about what we call the angel of light who was there on the mountain of God. So we know that it's a primordial mountain, a cosmic mountain, as a scholar named it in the 1900s, a cosmic mountain in which we have a pattern in Scripture that you go from chaotic waters to the mountain. Genesis, chaotic waters, to Eden. And then what happens? Cain sins, he builds a city. Chaos again, then it comes chaotic waters of the flood to Ararat, a mountain. And then after all the earth is restored to its original plan, then there's violence again, and there are people building cities in Shinar. And now they build a mountain there. They build their own version of the ziggurat, of a holy mountain, so they can go up and make themselves a great name, when it's the opposite. The gods come down so that humans can make them, the God of Israel, great. Everything in reverse. Yes? And it says, suddenly the bright cloud was overshadowing them, and from the cloud a voice said, this is my son, the beloved one. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him. This is a language of adoption. Language of adoption. So that now he can be a king. See, in the ancient Near East, you have the mouth ceremony, the open mouth ceremony in Egyptian mythology. When a pharaoh was going to be included into, a new pharaoh was going to come into power, they will take the pharaoh in front of the image of their god, and they will do a ritual of a mouth ceremony. Wait a minute. That ritual is a profanation of what happened in the garden. Because Adam, after 6 days, was placed on the 7th day in the garden. And then the Lord breathed on him the breath of life. What Moses is doing is trying to let you know it's not the gods of Egypt that gave life to humanity. It is the God of Israel who gave life to humanity. He's the one who gives us the mandate to be in his image, not to be slaves, to be oppressive of the gods, but for us to have dominion, co-heirs. That's why the Bible in the New Testament says that we are co-heirs with Messiah. Think about that. Co-heirs with Messiah. I mean, when I read that, I'm going like, what? Can you imagine you being a slave woman in the first century? And you are the husband. And then you have a bad master. And the master at the time could do anything he wanted with both of you. He can sleep with your wife. You cannot say anything about it. I mean, talk about oppression. And then comes Paul. Paul comes hanging around. He sees your oppression. He's a Roman citizen. And he's Jewish. But he's a Roman citizen. Big deal. So he's a plebeian. So he has rights. And in the first century, a Roman citizen was a big deal. It's like an American citizen today. Everybody wants it. Okay? Okay, so now Paul sees you guys and he knows you're slaves. And immediately he says, hey, Reuben, how are you? My name is such and such. And then he looks at you, I'm sorry? Susan. Hey, Susan, how are you? Can you imagine now Paul coming to you and start talking to you as human beings? Not as a slave. Not as a lower caste. And he says, by the way, you know that my master, we can be co-heirs with him? Excuse me? Co-heirs with your master. How does that work? Oh, because the Messiah that I serve, his name is Yeshua, he was crucified on the cross. Oh, he's shamed. That's what the cross represented. That sign is freedom to us, but back then it was the worst type of death that you can have. Shameful. And then he says, but then the Father resurrected him from, excuse me, he what? Resurrected him from he was vindicated by the God of Israel? That means that Caesar has no power over us? That Caesar has no power over life and death? And I said, by the way, you know the same vindication, if you die, he will resurrect you and he'll give you a new name. Honor. A new name, honor. By the way, he'll give you an inheritance. I get a piece of land, I could be co-heirs of the kingdom? And Paul says, yes, because our people were slaves in Egypt. We were oppressed. And we went from the great to the least, and then we went from the least to the great. He can do that with you. Now, back in the first century, that was the message of the gospel. Yeshua crucified and resurrected was revolutionary. But more so the way that it was explained to them is that you have a new name, you have honor, you have integrity. Then I treat you with equity. And by the way, would you like to come for Shabbat dinner? Excuse me, you want to eat with a slave? And then I take you to the sacred space of God, the Shabbat, where he put humanity to be servants, to be his servants, to be his steward masters on the earth. And then we all think the Sabbath is for us to prepare the table and for us to like make everything so we can welcome God to our house. No, it's the other way around. He has provided for you. He raised your level of honor from slaves in this world to free people. And then he invites you to come into his holy place, his sacred space. And then he says, I want you now to sit at my table. But all you need to do is wash your hands. You wash your hands before you approach him. Wash your hands. Lord, I'm here. Hope I'm righteous enough to be in your table and in your house today. That means that your house on the Shabbat becomes a microcosm of Eden and the millennial reign. That means that God is Emmanuel with you that night on Shabbat. So when you give thanks for the bread and thanks for the wine, you Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, blessed are you, Lord, King of the universe. You are exalting, making his name great for everything, for the food, for the wine, for your children, for your wife, for life, for Israel. Man, everything you say you do on the Sabbath is to make his name great in every prayer that you do. Because that's the enthronement ceremony. He has called you from the nations so that now as a kingdom we can become a temple. And he sanctified you because we can't do it ourselves. And then he provides for you. And then he says, set up your table as my altar. And have salt for covenant. Have bread for provision. Have the wine because it's a blessing. And wash your hands because you come into a cosmic mountain on the Sabbath to a high level of holiness on the week. You're coming up, aliyah. You're coming up to the Lord. Wash your hands. Is there idols in your heart? No. Do you have a clean heart and clean hands? That means that you now can ascend my mountain. See, it changes everything. That's when I keep Shabbat now. I'm going like, wow, you picked me to be your servant to serve you, to exalt you, to praise you, to let everybody know that you are the King of the universe, that this is your sacred space, that this is your sacred time, that you're bringing us into the garden again, that you bring us in a microcosm of Eden today, where there's peace, shalom. See, but we don't study the Sabbath like that. We just grab the Sabbath in the Bible and beat people over the head with it. Instead of teaching them how special God thinks of you, that He wants to bring you into a microcosm of the perfect peace of the kingdom. Changes everything. What really makes an impression on me is every Shabbat when I'm home, which is rare. When I'm home, I get to pray for my wife. It's impacting. Every time I do, I cry like a baby. Because I'm grateful. Because I look at her and I'm going like, how in the world would you ever give me that amazing to me? I'm not worthy of that gift. Then I have two boys. I have a 26 and I have a 21-year-old. And it's incredible. When we go to the congregation, we do the blessing. Here are my two boys, grown men. They're coming up to me for me to bless them. Really? I mean, they're seeking the blessing of their father. You know, when I was a kid, I always seek out my dad to bless me. In Spanish, we have a custom. We go in anywhere. At the moment we walk up and we see our family members, and my mom and dad say, bendición, mami. I mean, we strive for that blessing from our parents. You know. And I always say, man, when I'm a dad, I hope my kids seek out the blessing from me as I seek it of my dad. And now the Father restored everything. So now that's happening. You know, and I'm going like, wow. Everything I own, He gives to me. Everything I have. I remember having 13 years with a bad hip. I couldn't barely walk. You know, I don't know if some of you ever saw me, but I kept going to Israel. I kept going forward. I kept traveling. I kept doing this. There were times when I would step and the pain was so intense. Okay, and I kept teaching and teaching, and then I have to go lay down for 3 hours. But it didn't matter because I was still an ambassador of the King. It didn't matter. I said, Lord, even if I have to limp, I still love you. I praise you. I would uplift you and honor you. Because I knew eventually I needed surgery. Okay, I got no insurance. It just so happened that the insurance kicked in after the other one came in and they paid for but I still have to pay like $15,000 in my own pocket. And my wife said, oh, she's stressed out. I said, honey, I serve the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and I am His servant, and I'll believe in Him. He'll provide for everything. Don't worry, we're good. I don't know anything. It came in. I never have to ask. You know, and this is why I'm teaching you this. I'm going like, how in the world is it that I can understand this? And I'm thinking, I'm not worthy, so that's why I'm so passionate. I'm grateful. And if you can go back different today, understanding the Sabbath and the temple, and you say, I want to learn how to walk. If I go into the temple, which way do I go in? Do I go left? No. Make sure you go right, unless you're in mourning. Everywhere you come in, you go to the right, you get out of the left. This is a temple protocol. When I bring a sacrifice, do I bring the leftovers or I give Him the best? You know, so when you come to the congregation, did you just give handouts to people? Or anybody have to entice you to help somebody, the widows and the strangers? Wait a minute, didn't we forget that we are all destitute at one point in our lives? Whether that was physically, economically, psychologically, bad relationships, and the Lord gave you a good partner? But then we sabotage it because we've been so wounded because we were not living according to our mandate, that we were just giving ourselves away to the world. We abuse ourselves. And then finally the Lord sends someone better than we deserve. And we have too many issues because we feel guilty and we don't value the gift He gives us. Amen. So the same thing that happens on the regular relationships is why we don't value salvation and we don't value the gifts of the Torah. I mean, think about it. And then He says, I have more planned for you. I want you to come into my sacred space, the Sabbath. And then I want to invite you for my feast. Every 7 months, I got some feasts. I wanted to delight in you. Come, just give me your best. Show up. No, sir, I don't want to show up now this time because the Jews don't know nothing. They have been doing this for 3,700 years, but they know nothing. You see, so now I want to determine when I want to show up. Oh, the Jews says who've been doing this for a long time, well, we're faithful, right? The Sabbath and the feast, they don't play around. And they go, well, I don't like the way they do it. They look kind of funny over there, so I'm just going to show up whenever I want to show up. So thus we have like 5 Passovers and like 10 Shavuots and like 6 tabernacles and when none of us can agree with anything. Mind you, we don't deserve to be in God's sacred space, and now we are changing the sacred dates. Holy feasts. We just do it according to our own understanding. Now we are telling the king when he's supposed to show up instead of us being submissive and show up when he says. What happens if you give someone a job and they show up late the first 2 weeks after you give them a job? Mind you, they have no money, they have no job, they have nothing. Now you're paying them a lot of money, and all you say is, show up at 8 in the morning. They show up at 8:05. Not a problem. Next week, 8:30, at 9 o'clock. And then you tell them, it's 8 o'clock. Well, you know, I live by grace. I don't need to be here on time. How is that going to go? Are you going to have a job very long? So the temple teaches you. The temple service starts at a time. You got to be in place at the time that it starts. It's not waiting for you. Because it's the meeting with your king. If you have listen, there's a whole bunch of people here that don't like the president. That's your problem. I like my president, okay? All right. People tell me, stay away from the politics. It's my opinion. You can't respect my opinion? Anyway, but if you don't like the president, and then all of a sudden now they invite you to the White House. Guarantee you, you don't like the guy, but you're going to go buy a suit. And you're going to get nice and pretty. If you're a woman, you get your nails done, your hair done, all that stuff. You got nice heels or whatever, because you're going to meet a person who has any kind of authority. Queen of England, all you ladies, if you don't wear hats, you know. Again, look, if people say, well, women should cover their hair when they read the Torah. Oh, no, we don't want to do that. But then when you go meet the Queen of England, you got to wear ugly hats. If you're going to meet the Queen of England, you have to wear the hat. If she stops eating, you got to stop eating. You don't start eating until she starts eating. And by the way, when you're going to meet her, you got to wait until she calls you, and then you got to go, ding. That's the protocol, right? That's the protocol. And you have to learn it before you meet the queen, a mere mortal, who's just a symbol. Really have no authority whatsoever, just a symbol, right? They respect the symbol. How much more my king? How much more the house of my king? Where he dwells, he wants to dwell in the house, and he wants to teach you his patterns. He wants to teach you his holy spaces, and then he teaches you, when you come to me, be cleansed. Wash your garments. Wash yourself. Clean your hands. You're coming. That means that you're righteous. Come on up now. Wear white. Right? Did the people wear white on Yom Kippur? Why is that? Why did the priest wear white on Yom Kippur? To show you that even once a year, the Lord still desires to allow men to be in his presence. That's why the high priest represents all of Israel. And he wore white. So you see the story in Matthew 17, how it reflects an enthronement ceremony? You have all the elements. After 6 days, that means this happened on the 7th day. Right? And there's the cloud. And there is the Lord speaking on behalf of Yeshua. Speaking. Remember what I told you in the ancient Egypt? The open mouth ceremony? In order for this Pharaoh to become a legitimate Pharaoh, he had to go through that ceremony in order to be deified per se. Or in this case, authorized by the image of the God. Because they couldn't talk to the God directly. They went to the image. But in this case, the Lord is speaking directly to us. We don't need another idol. We are the image of him on the earth. You see what I mean? All right, so this is what the ancient worlds believe. Right here, this is what I want to take you on the right. Egypt, Sheol, chaotic waters, disorder, dysfunction, death. That's where he brought us from. Hey, I got a question for you. When you came to the gospel, how many of you, your lives was a living nightmare for about 1 year after you accepted the Messiah? Many people have chaos in their lives. They just cannot make it. I mean, they go backwards and they go back. And they're like, oh, I don't deserve it. I feel guilty. And they have a struggle. It's like a fight constantly. You're fighting all your addictions. You're fighting all your attitude. You're fighting your old man. You're trying to renew your mind, but you can't do it. For some reason, after you make a strong commitment and you say, I'm going to serve the Lord no matter what, then you go through the waters. Chaotic waters. That's why baptism has to be done in living waters, moving water, because it represents chaotic waters. It represents creation. It represents disorder. It represents death. So now your life is out of covenant. You just Adam without the living Spirit of God. You were just here, just a body, no purpose, no hope. You were just trying to create your own name, and that failed, right? And then you have to go through chaotic waters. It's called baptism. Living waters, the waves running through. You go in. That's a type of a birthing process. It's type of a new creation, right? So it's also divine judgment. Just like in the Noah. Is this making sense? Yeah. You're going from out of covenant into covenant, from out of relationship with God into the sons and daughters of God. But you got to go through the chaotic waters, just like Noah went through chaotic waters. Just like Israel went through the Red Sea, the first generation. Just like Israel, the second generation went through the River Jordan. You see, you have to go through the birthing process. And then once you go through the water, you come out of the water, guess what? The Lord found you innocent. You survived the chaos. That water became salvation. Remember the ark? The waters were destruction for the wicked, but it was a way of salvation for the righteous. Get it? That's the gospel in the book of Genesis right there. And then all of a sudden now you come out of the chaotic waters. And then when you come out of the waters, you say, Abba, Father. He says, son and daughter. And now you have been given the right to be called the sons and daughters of God. For what purpose? For what purpose? To go to heaven and play harp the rest of your life? That's what they taught us. Oh, we're going to go to heaven. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. I'd rather stay on earth and become an integral part of the restoration of everything as the image of God on the earth. I'd rather be here than when the people see me meeting on Shabbat. Hey, how come you meet on Shabbat? Why do you do that? Oh, Shabbat, because it's the way to return to God's throne, to return to Eden, where the table of the Lord is always plentiful. There's always peace. There's always the family structures restored. Isn't it interesting how all the chaos normally that happens in society, major amount of rates of murder happens between Friday night and Saturday night? Do your research. It's kind of interesting. Interesting. All the major chaos. You go out on a Friday night or on Saturday night. Trust me, I know. I used to do it all the time. Man, I'll tell you, I don't know how in the world I survived some of that chaos. Sunday was the worst day to go out. Come on, don't tell me you never went out anywhere. You live in California, please. Now you're all holy and sanctified, and now you don't want to come on. Now you look at me like, I've never done that before. Don't talk to me. You know, it's like, really? Man, it's like, you know, Friday nights and Saturday nights, and the Lord says, no, you don't understand. I want to keep you protected. I want to meet with you. He knows the end from the beginning. I want you to come and meet with me. Sit at my table, man. Sit with your family. The house, the family, and the piece of land where you dwell becomes a holy space to the Lord. At least once a year, once a week, the Lord wants to restore the family, the house, and your piece of land. There's peace. I've never made that connection until right now, so I'm learning. I'm glad it's being recorded, so I got to remember that one. All right? All right, so now what we have is a cosmic mountain in the ancient world. This is what the cosmic mountain looked like. I told you I was going to go to Genesis 28, remember? And I forgot to read it. Let's go back to Genesis 28. Is it 28? Yeah. Jacob's dream. Starts in verse 10, right? And then he goes all the way to verse 22, but I'm going to read from verse 12. He says, then he dreamed, and behold, the ladder was set up on the earth. Watch. See that ladder? Steps. That's what the ziggurats were. The pyramids were a type of a ziggurat. They're prevalent in the ancient world. They're supposed to represent a cosmic mountain where the gods will come down. You see that in the ancient world. I get it. When I read this chapter, I'm connecting with ancient Near East. It makes perfect sense. Okay, and they believe that in Shinar, or Mesopotamia, was the cradle of civilization. So therefore, they believe that was the center of humanity, where humanity was created. Remember that Abraham came from that area. So clearly, Abraham would have taught Isaac. Isaac would have taught Jacob. So now the Lord is revealing Jacob something a little deeper about where his house is, where creation started. It says, a ladder was set up on the earth, and its top reached to heaven, whether the angels of God were ascending and descending to it. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord God of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac. The land, listen to this, the land which you lie, I give to you, to your descendants. And your descendants. That's a gift. That means that the land and the people of Israel are the gift from God to Jacob and to Abraham and to Isaac. So if you speak against the land and if you speak against the people, who are you really challenging? Are you sure you want to fight that battle? So anyone, how will we not learn the lesson? I mean, when Antiochus Epiphanes went in and defiled the temple, defiled the land, and tried to kill the people, didn't he die? I mean, he died later on. He actually wrote a letter back apologizing for everything he did. Have you ever read the story in the book of Maccabees? Go back and read it. It's really fascinating stuff. I mean, he was so afraid of what's going on. They go, oh, let me write, maybe I got forgiveness or something. Nope, too late for you, dude. And then we have the Nazis, right? We have Hitler. I mean, and we have Egypt. And we have Babylon. We have all these things. How will we not learn the lesson? Every time you try to do something against the people, against the land of Israel, you're always going to have judgment because it's a gift. All right. Verse 13. I read that already. Verse 14. Also your descendants shall be as the dust of the earth. Interesting. Dust of the earth. Going back to the creation story. You shall spread abroad to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south. Spread. And in you and your seed, all the families of the earth shall be blessed. Why? You become like gardeners. Be scattered. The seed of Abraham will be scattered. Get it? Israel is going to be like the master gardener of all of God's garden, which is the earth, because the earth was the original temple. This is why after the millennial reign in the book of Revelation, it doesn't speak about a temple. Have you noticed that? Everything's going to be renewed. Renewed heaven and renewed earth. It doesn't say about a temple. And it tells you in chapters 21, 22 that the Lord will dwell among men again. Emmanuel. So guess what? Do you know that you are Emmanuel, that you are Emmanuel, that you are Emmanuel, you are Emmanuel, and I am Emmanuel? Because we are the image of God on the earth? That's what it represents. Emmanuel is an idiom for a king of Israel. A king of Israel was supposed to be the image of the God. That's why the Antichrist, when he sits in the temple and he sits there, he is saying, I come with the authority to rule this house. But he was not put there. He is usurping the authority, thus challenging the gift given to David, because the Lord gave the kingship to David as a gift. Covenant of salt. David is supposed to be the image of God, and he did righteousness and justice. The Antichrist does oppression. So the Antichrist oppresses people, and he is supposed to be the image of God. What does that say about the God who's sending him? So if you oppress the homeless, the widows, the strangers, the needy, and you say you love the God of Israel and you're oppressing your neighbor, you are shaming the name that you so desperately are trying to pronounce perfectly. You are shaming the name if you act in oppression towards your brother and your sister. So I'd rather not know the name and act with righteousness and representing his character than know his pronunciation perfectly, and then when I act and I do something, bring shame to that name, because now everybody knows who my God is. Have mercy upon us, O my Father, my King. Verse 15. Is this making sense to you? Behold, I am with you, and I will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have spoken to you. I trust the word right there. He says, I am with you. I will keep you, will bring you. It's like Genesis 12. It was talking about Abraham. I will bring you, I will take you, I will redeem you, and I will bless you. Same pattern again. Now, verse 16, then Jacob awoke up from his sleep and said, surely the Lord is in Hamakom, this place. Makom is an idiom for the temple. And I did not know it. Listen to this. He was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of, wasn't he in a mountain? Bethel, the house of God. This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate. Look, 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 look. They believed that this was the house of the gods and that was the gate of heaven. That's what the temple is. The temple is the house of the Lord and is the gate to heaven. So if you refuse to study the temple, you are now nullifying your access to the heavenly throne. Because that's where everything goes. That's why you pray towards Jerusalem. And he was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. Then Jacob rose early in the morning and took the stone that he had put his head and set it up as a pillar and poured oil. And he called the name Bethel. You see that? Now let's go to verse 21. He says, so I came back to my father's house in peace, then the Lord shall be my God. And this stone which I have set as a pillar shall be God's house. And all of that you give me, I will surely give a tenth of you. So he says, hey, in this temple, because you gave me all this, when I come back, I'll give the tenth to you. No, but wait a minute. What did he do when he came back? No, he got scared of Esau, and he gave the tribute that's supposed to be for the Lord. He gave it to the enemy, Edom. Chapters 31, 32, and 33, the book of Genesis. He gave everything. The Father blessed him over there in the dispersion. And instead of keeping his word, he gave it out of fear to his brother. And then he didn't go to Bethel. He went to Shechem. He went to Shechem. And what happened there? Chaos. 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 Finally, he got it. I think I got to go to the mountain. So he tells everybody, put away your strange gods. Remember? Why do they do that? I mean, so they came from Laban's house with all their gods. Put away your strange gods. What does that mean? In the ancient world, when you will bring your family gods, was guaranteed of your inheritance. That's why Laban freaked out when Rachel took the gods and Jacob didn't know. It was the guaranteed of the inheritance of the father. So that means that Laban, when he had children, the family gods was the guaranteed. Whoever possessed the family god, that one has the inheritance. Get it? So he's telling, put away your strange gods. In other words, we're going to go to Bethel. We went from chaos to the mountain, to order. We created chaos in the dispersion. We give away our inheritance to the pagans. And now we have chaos, we go to the mountain. Put it away. You don't need an inheritance from men. He's going to give you the inheritance now. Interesting, right? So let me continue here. We'll be done in about a half hour. I think we got 20 minutes, and then we go from there. I'm staying on time. I'm staying on time. I'm being good. I'm being good. So what is the role of the Ruach, of the Spirit of God? In Genesis 1:22, 26, and 27, talks about the creation of men. Genesis 3:7, when Elohim Adonai formed the man of the dust from the ground, he blew into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living creature. I already showed you about this. This is the difference between a house and a home. Your bodies became the home of the Spirit of God once you accepted Yeshua. You went from life on this earth without hope of eternity to now life of eternity. So you don't care about if you die tomorrow, you want to live, but if you die, you know we are going to be vindicated and we are going to be restored and we're going to come back to Eden. Because God said so, we must believe him. I don't care what anybody tells you. He says we will be an inheritance of the kingdom. I believe him. I put my trust in him. If I die doing it, it don't matter. I got to believe it. I got to stand on his word, on his trust, on his oath. That's the most binding thing. It's an oath. What keeps me together with my wife is not love. Love becomes the essence of our relationship. It becomes the icing on the cake. What keeps me together with my wife and focus on her is my commitment to my maker and her and my oath that I made. I never knew that before. That's why I was going from relationship to relationship. I don't like it. I don't need you. Bye. I fell out of love. I fell. What happened? You're walking, just hit your head one day. I mean, that's ridiculous. I fall in love with you. Or I fell out of love. No, you were not committed. I fell in love with you because, you know, you have something I want. I want to have a girlfriend so I can have all the benefits of a marriage. And then I throw you in a disposable relationship. Just get out. I don't need you anymore. Happens in both men and women. Interesting. The enemy's trying to do the same thing, entice you to do what? Profane the house so that it can never become a home. I got to repeat that again. Okay, he's trying to profane the house, this body, so that no one want to live with it. Right? I mean, think about it. If you profane yourself in relationship to relationships, and you meet a really nice guy, or you meet a really nice girl, right? And now you are profaned. This guy's got to deal with a lot of stuff. The question is, can I live in that dirty house? Right? Can I deal with that dirty house? No. We want the relationships to clean the house that we created the chaos. That's when I changed my prayer. I said, Lord, change me that I may change my circumstance. Then I began to become the man God wanted me to be. When I was ready, then he sent the person who was willing to see the mess that I created, but I was willing to clean it out. When I cleaned it up and I was willing to commit, then she wants to live in it. And now we have a family, a home, and a piece of land. But the order came from chaos, and the only one who fixed the chaos was the Creator. I'm telling you, man, I sit there in the car, and I have a lot of driving to do this week. And I was sitting there coming here from Vegas. Man, there's nothing nice to look at. So I was just looking to the right, looking to the left, looking to the front. And I'm like, all I see is I can understand why the children of Israel want to go to Egypt. I mean, seriously, you got the pyramids in Vegas, and you start driving over there. When you get to Barstow, you're going to go, I think I'm going back to Vegas. It's more fun over there. You know what I mean? There's plenty of food, plenty of entertainment, and plenty of things to do, right? In the desert, there's nothing. You just got to look at ugly stuff. It looks kind of green now, and you look and you see mountain and mountain, sand, sand, mountain and mountain. And I took that opportunity to just remember the children of Israel in the wilderness. And I began to reflect on exactly how my life has been the same way. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what a beautiful wilderness. Because that's the place where the Lord revealed himself to the children of Israel. Away from entertainment, away from what looked good, away from what the world has to give you, away from chaos, away from death. You know, the desert seems like if you don't have water, you don't know which way you're going, it's death. But when you're with the Lord, the cloud becomes the best GPS you can find. Just follow the cloud. So I began to thank him yesterday. It was amazing. I'm sitting there, and I've got all my music, and I'm singing alone, and no one's listening to me, so I'm singing out of my lungs, you know, and I'm just so grateful, and I'm just so thankful that I get to work for the kingdom, and I'm just looking out here, I look over there, look forward, I'm going, you're so good, you're so kind. I got nothing to look at, no distractions, so I look up, thank you, Lord. I'm looking at the traffic, thank you, you're so good. You know, it's like all of a sudden I understood the people of the wilderness. And I was waiting to see that mountain because he told me, the moment you go over that mountain, call me. I'm thinking about this whole thing. When you're talking to me, I'm going like, yeah. You know, when they see the mountain, imagine Israel. They saw the mountain, right? And they scared the living daylights out of them because now they hear the voice of God. And we pray, Lord, please, please deliver us from Egypt and deliver us from oppression. And the Lord hears your cry. And then he guides you through the wilderness and you're walking on, there's nothing like, and the life in Messiah is so boring. I can't go out Friday night. I can't go out on Saturday night. I cannot do this. I can't do that. I can't do that. And sometimes you're thinking, I remember when. You know, and the Lord on the other side, he's trying to bring you in the wilderness so he can teach you how to become a temple. You see, you have to purge your way from wanting to be in death and oppression and chaos. And he needs to guide you. It's interesting that the children of Israel never complain about the walk. They never complained. Have you ever wondered why? They were ready for the walk, standing in one place for all those years as slaves, making bricks. Have you ever been to a mud pit? Come on now, a mud pit. And now you have little Johnny in the mud pit. He grows up, he have little Peter, and he's in the mud pit. And they're praying to the Lord, Lord, someday you will deliver us from this oppression to Egypt. And you know, all of a sudden the day shows up, and they got all the generation making bricks. They were already ready for the walk. They were in shape, man. They were in shape. They were ready. I mean, the walk was never the problem. It's like, oh, now we got a place to go. Can you imagine making on a mud pit? It's like the mud up to like 9 inches or 6 inches, and you can barely, and you know, the first time you're walking, and then you're all sore. After about 200 years, you don't mind anymore. It's like, oh, we got to do bricks today? Not a problem. Okay, guys, let's do it. And we go. And then you start playing. You know, sometimes when you get really good shape, you start bragging with your friends. Hey, check me out. You start going like this. See what happens when I'm driving in the wilderness? And I'm complaining 3 hours in the car for crying out loud, and these people were walking. You know, but they never complain about the walk. That means that the Lord prepares you in your day of oppression for when the day of deliverance comes, you are ready to get out. That's how awesome He is. That's why last night my brother was talking about his rejection from law school, right? Rejected, rejected, rejected. And the Lord was preparing him. Because when the news came, when he waited, at God's timing, the Lord rewarded him. Not only with the school better than the other one, but also everything paid for. That's amazing. That's how good my King is. See, do you think that the people of Israel would have survived the wilderness if they never were ready for it? Imagine if you have to walk that far, if you never walked that far. All of you here, we're walking from here to Vegas. Guarantee you, 99% of you will be turning back after the first week. It's all good for about 3 days. And then you're going to look back. There's no water. There's nothing to look at. All of a sudden, you start looking at little Johnny over here. You're stinking funny, bro. And you got to take a shower, dude. You know, you walk over here, and then if you want to go to the camp, you can't go to the bathroom just here. You got to go way outside the camp. You know, I got to go to the bathroom, and then you got to walk about the other direction. You know, I mean, we don't think about this stuff, logistics, right? I mean, those people had it going on back then. We just get in the car and go to the next 7-Eleven and go in the bathroom. You know, in the temple, by the way, do you know what the name of the bathrooms were called in the temple? The seat of dignity. Yeah, ask Joe. He'll tell you the seat of dignity. So anyway, let's move on because I have a little time and I'm already late. Acts chapters 2, verse 1. The day of Pentecost. It's interesting. On the day of Pentecost in Mount Sinai, it took them from death, from chaotic waters, to the Mount Sinai. And there was a cloud there. And by the way, you have the same division of the temple. You have the court of the women, court of Israel, and you have the court of the priests. Or you have the court of Israel, court of the priests, and then the Holy of Holies. The same thing on the mountain. You have where the priests, where the people were. And remember, Moses took the 70 elders, so the people stayed in one place. The 70 elders stayed in one place, and the sons of Aaron stayed on another one. And it was after 6 days, that the Lord called Moses to the cloud. You see what I mean? After 6 days, the Lord called up Moses. Come on up. But it was only him who can go up to the top of the mountain. That's the Holy of Holies. That's the top of the temple on Mount Sinai. Yes? See how we need to understand the temple to understand Mount Sinai on the day of Pentecost? So the Spirit represents the seal of God in our lives. So let's move on from that. So the image of Elohim, which is you, the order of creation and the role of men, the function. Your function, ladies and gentlemen, is to be stewards, viceroys, regents of His creation. What an amazing job. You're not a slave of Him. You are now co-heirs and stewards. Your identity is to be a kingdom of righteousness and justice. I'm giving you a lot of information, am I? Isn't it cool, though? Amazing, though, how we can learn about the temple from the book of Genesis. We're not there yet. I still got another 2 hours. You think I'm kidding? I'm not kidding. I'm being serious. Check it out. We're going to cover that later. Where was I, actually? Where is it? Where is it? There you go. There it is. Kingdom of righteousness and justice and representation. We serve as His viceroys. Think about this. What an amazing honor, okay? Next, what was the function of Adam? To guard the garden. And actually, right after I'm done with this slide, I'm going to go to the next 2 right here, and I'm going to finish at this one, I think. This one, okay? So we only have like 4 more. So this is the function. We have to guard the garden. There's a lot more to this teaching I want to share with you, but I don't want to give it away now, okay? I'm going to connect in the next, after the break, after lunch or whatever it is, I'm going to connect the garden with the tabernacle and make the connections, okay? This is all I've done already up to this point is trying to show you your function within the body, within the kingdom of God. We're supposed to be a nation of priests. Okay, fine. Does that mean that now we're doing away with the Levitical priesthood that God established? No, you don't understand. The original plan of the Lord was for all of humanity to be representative. That's what a priest is. What is the function of a priest? Is to intercede, to be a benefactor. Like you guys are going to go pray for someone this afternoon after I'm done, right? That's the role of a priest. To redirect a person on their behalf to the Creator, because now you are the voice of this great representative, of this God. You're the representative. That's supposed to be the plan of all of Israel. But because of sin, the Lord says, no, the priests have that role. But that doesn't mean you cannot still work within the function of it. Just don't take their job away. But you can still work the function of it. You follow? That's what I'm saying. Okay, so now watch this. So you guard the garden, la avodah. Do you know what the service in the temple was called for the priests? Avodah. In Genesis, when it says that Adam was to work, to guard, and keep the garden, the word there is avodah, to work, to serve. That's why the service in the temple by the priest was called avodah. Interesting. Adam was light, wasn't he? That's why Yeshua says, I am the light of the world. I'll give you permanent freedom, right? But also, I'm the last Adam. And now we are supposed to be the light of the world. We are new creation in Messiah. Thus, we are dressed in the garments of Messiah. And if he shines, we shine, right? If we imitate him. So now we are the light. We are supposed to represent the God again as Adam did in creation. Be fruitful and multiply. Next thing, have dominion and be the image of God on the earth. What's interesting is that every single one of you, when you say keeping the Torah, right? How many of you have done the prayer, Et Chaim Hi? Et Chaim Hi. Let's see if I find it. I have it here. Let me go back. I want to see it. I'll probably stop with this. I repeated it because I have 3 teachings in this PowerPoint. So I can go back and forth depending on the audience that I'm talking to. I'll get it. There we go, right here. So every Shabbat, when I do the Torah service, after we do the reading, first we come to him and we praise, we uplift, we honor, we raise his name, make his name known on the Shabbat, right? On the enthronement day, enthronement ceremony. After we pray and we ask and we praise him, we bless him. That's why on the Sabbath blessings, there are only 7 blessings. On the weekly blessings, there are 18. Because on Shabbat, you are there to make his name great, to declare his kingship and his ruleship and authority. It's not about you today. It's about him. There's room for personal prayer. There's room for personal petition. But normally the day is all about him, because that's the day he has chosen you to come to the gates of Eden, which is Sabbath, and pray to the Father and thank him and be grateful and exalt his name. I hope this teaching, listen, I'm praying to the Father that he would enlarge my territory. I think the Christian church needs to hear this. You know, I hope that he gives me the opportunity to go to the Christian church and share this with them, because if they would object this, then I don't know what else we got to teach them. No believer should ever have any objection with this. The Bible is quite clear. They just might have an objection with the Torah. But check this out. The Lord is given a garden. He's a gardener now. The Lord gives Adam a role to be the gardener, to protect, to guard it, right? So that's what we do with the Torah. The Torah is the tree of life. Listen. So after the service, we raise the Torah and we say, Et haimchi leman chasikim ba v'tomecha meusha derechecha darchei noam v'chol netivotecha shalom. That's what we do. And then we say, help us and guide us, inspire us and provide us. It says, Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva Chadesh, Chadesh Yamenu, Chadesh Yamenu kekedem. Then we raise it up and we say, with wisdom your Torah can show. Cause us to learn, renew, return, just as in days of old. That's what we do. That's what we do. We raise the Torah. That means that now we, at least on the Sabbath, we become the primordial Adam. And we are now guarding the garden, the Sabbath and the feast. It's all a microcosm. And we keep the Torah. When you observe the Torah and when you share the Torah with people, you become the image of God again. And now you become Adam, and you are sowing the seed of the word of the Lord. You are protecting the Torah. You are Adam again. That's what you're called to do. But you're never going to be able to do it unless you understand your purpose, your function, and how the temple works. Why? Because you see, the veil rented. There are 4 veils here. This one rented. Why would the veil rent? Like I said last night, the veil was designed as the heavens. Josephus talks about this. It was designed as the heavens. It ripped. Why does it rip? So we can have access to the Holy Holies. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, no one can go into the Holy Holies. And if we had access to the Holy Holies, then why would we need Yeshua as the high priest? It makes no sense. Right? Because we cannot go in there right now. Now, in the millennium or after the millennium, when the Father returns on the earth and He dwells with us and all of the earth is restored and we are now perfect in His presence, then we're going to be able to Emmanuel with Him. The whole earth is going to be His sacred space again. That's going to be amazing. I can't even imagine how that's going to be. All right? So what happens is, then why did the veil rent it? Could it be possible? It's to let us know, because inside this place right in here, look how big it was. You have the menorah, the altar of incense right here, and the showbread. Could it be possible that the veil renting is to let us know that we have access to the tree of life? The tree of life was designed. That's my menorah, by the way. Okay, it's a beautiful work the guy did. All right, and the tree of life, the menorah, is designed as an almond tree. The staff of Moses, an almond tree. Wasn't the almond tree inside the Holy Holies? Placed in the bottom in front of the Ark of the Covenant? Interesting. So could it be possible that when Yeshua died, the veil rents to let us know that through Him taking the shame of Israel and Him taking the shame of all of humanity to restore the covenant and Him being vindicated by the Father in the resurrection, and now we dress the Messiah, that means that we can be the next Adam. All we need to do is imitate Him. What did He do? How did He treat people? That means that now, ladies and gentlemen, through Yeshua, our Master, He's the door. So we can go now into the tree of life. It doesn't mean that you can go, rush in there and just say, I could go in now and present myself in here. No. Symbolically now, we have access to the kingdom. We have access to Eden. We have access to the millennial reign. We have access to heaven on earth again. That's what the temple is supposed to teach you. How the Lord opened the way back to His presence. So how do we know this? To finish it up right here. How do we know this? How can we prove this? Rico, how can you prove this stuff? If I could just find the thing that I need, it's not here. Right here. Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is a day in which only one man. Remember, Moses represented all of Israel when he went on that mountain. Adam represents all of humanity, right? Thus, Yeshua represents Moses, type of Moses, and Adam. That's why he's presented as a high priest in the book of Revelation, in the book of Hebrews, I'm sorry. Okay, that means that, think about this. Once a year, the gates of heaven open. And once a year, one person, that's why only one person can do everything. That's why the priests take responsibility for him and the whole Israel. Because once a year, like Adam was responsible for all of humanity, like Moses was responsible for all of Israel. Thus, Yeshua is responsible not only for Israel, but all of humanity. Moses took us to Mount Sinai so that Israel can become Adam on the earth again. Humanity in the image of God. They rejected that through idolatry. So he picked the priest, the high priest, and the sons of Aaron to do the work. So they're a prototype of Adam. That's why they have to wear white in the temple. They cannot wear any other color. The only one who can dress really nice garments was the high priest. And I'm going to show you what that is later. So therefore now on Yom Kippur, the high priest could not wear any beautiful garments. He had to wear the white garments to enter into the Holy of Holies. The day of Yom Kippur is the day that men can enter the presence of Adonai again. The day teaches us that God still desires to dwell with humanity again, because he represents not only Israel, but all of humanity. And this is the reason why the Jews don't believe in Yeshua. And the Christians don't get this. Because you see, when he died on that tree, he resurrected. He was not only trying to bring the end of oppression and the exile. See, in the first century, the Jews believed they were still in exile, even though the temple was there, even though they had a Sanhedrin, but they were dominated by a pagan king. And they were submitted by Rome. So they were still considering themselves in exile. And they were looking for the revolutionary person who will come in and destroy the enemies of Rome and would take away Herod and put in someone the line of David. And Yeshua qualified. But the Father had a master plan. It's to give a release, to give forgiveness, not only to Israel, but also that through Israel, all of humanity would have an opportunity to return to the garden, because God established that premise in the book of Genesis. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were not Jewish. Adam was not Jewish. That means that the whole plan of God is not just for the Jewish people, but God is using the Jewish people and Israel as the vehicle to bring the reconciliation of all things. We can never disregard their role and their job. We need to unite with them. We need to be together with them, because they have a mandate. Are you with me? Yes. So therefore now the Lord Yeshua, when he passed and when he resurrects, is to restore all of humanity again in the future to the kingdom. Paul understood this. That's why he's teaching constantly. Don't worry about it. No matter what happens, he has sealed you into the day of redemption. You'll be turned and transformed in a twinkling of an eye. Don't lose hope. It may not happen now, but it will happen again. Constantly, he's letting you know the master plan. He understood this because Paul was a lawyer. He was a teacher of the law. He understood the legality of the oath. He understood the legality of the document. He knew that God was bound by his word to act on behalf of his righteousness. And that's why the rabbis, when they pray, I just did the prayers this morning, says, act for your name's sake. Act for your right hand's sake. Act for your righteousness' sake. Act for the Torah's sake. Do not delay. Because we are asking him to work on our behalf, because he is good. He is righteous. And he is just. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to leave you with this. What in the world have you done that has found so much favor in the Lord, that with our idolatries, with our rebellions, with our attitudes, with everything we've done, the Lord saw fit that he heard your prayers and your outcry when you most needed it, and he sent somebody to bring you the hope of salvation. And then on top of that, when he gives you the hope of salvation, he says, will you be willing to work for my kingdom? So that way now, when I look at the temple, it tells you, you have the people who work in the buildings, you have the choir, you have the priests, you have the bread makers, the incense maker. It's a government. Everybody has a role. And there are people who sweep the floors, who gather the wood, who raise the flock, who took this, who got the grain, who got the oil. It's teaching you how to work as a kingdom. So now we have a congregation. We have leaders. We have people to work in the kitchen. We have people to teach the kids. We have people to take care of all the things. Now, you know the most important people there? The people who clean the house. Those who clean the house, they're preserving the sanctity of the home that God has created. We don't think about that. We're thankful we have a chance to clean the house and allow the presence of God to make us his home. But we need to learn the temple to teach us that.
Amen. Amen. Hey, isn't this good? It's awesome.